Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Taoist Corner podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Stewart, founder and chief editor of the Taoist Online and projectjade.net. Normally, what we do is we work through a book called 365 Tao by Bing Tao, but today we're going to do something a little different. You see, during the holidays, the Taoist Online had a writing contest, a holiday writing contest, where writers were supposed to turn in their favorite holiday memory. The winning author, writer Heidi Pyper, wrote an amazing, heartfelt story about her father, who has now since passed away. One Christmas, Heidi's father decided to surprise his children by inviting them to the theater only to not attend. His children were surprised to learn that not only was he in fact there at the theater, but was actually performing on stage. So without further ado, let's welcome writer and contest winner Heidi Pyper. First of all, congratulations for winning the contest.
Thank you. Very excited.
Yeah,
it's the first ever one.
Very welcome. Why don't we actually start? Tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been writing.
So my name is Heidi. My pen name is Heidi Pyper, and I've been writing on and off for years. Poetry. I started writing poetry with more focus about 4 years ago, and then properly writing about a year ago. But forever, I've always had notebooks. I've always written kids' stories. I spent a lot of time as an educational writer, so I was always writing educational stories like that. So I've been writing sort of all my life, but actually focusing and creating projects, and most importantly, finishing projects, has been just the past few years. I'm a great starter, but not a very good finisher. So discovering Medium, I discovered Medium in May last year, and that's changed everything. Just knowing that I can put a piece of work up there, get feedback, read other writers, it's just really, really motivating. And learning to craft a piece of work. And there's so much to learn from the writers on Medium, the advice that they give, and also the and just the stories that you read, that the quality there is incredible. So that's been, the past year has really been instrumental in my writing.
Well, it seems to be going really well, at least for the writing contest. I mean, we were just talking before we started recording that your article that you submitted for a holiday writing contest was by far and away the best article that we had for submissions. Can you take me through why you chose to write about your dad and that story?
That story, it had been, I think it just, I'm trying to be succinct with my response, but I think what I like about writing, particularly writing on Medium, is I always start off with an idea and think that's what I'm going to write about. But in the process of writing, something else comes up. And that's what happened with my dad's article. I was writing something about, I think I was writing about your dreams and holding on to your dreams and why they're important. And they're not just airy fairy dreams. And then it just sort of came out on the page, my dad's story. And it just flowed from there, really. And I sort of remembered, I was taken back to the time. So that time I mentioned in the story where he was unveiled to us on stage, and we had no idea about his love of theatre. And that was just a really magical time. And whenever I tell people about that, I always well up, because my father died, as I said, he died about 17 years ago. So that's a very sort of strong childhood memory. And then it just flowed from there, really. So it was sort of, I was wondering, what shall I write about? And then the main idea just came to me as I was testing out other ideas.
Was there anything in the article that I know as a writer, a lot of times I'll go through and I'll cut things out and I'll kind of move things around. Was there anything specifically challenging or things you left out that in this article that you just either thought that it wasn't important or wasn't time?
There was a lot. I think I went into a lot of detail. Yeah, I went into a lot more detail about the theatre. The theatre, that particular theatre where I mentioned, that was just fundamental to our upbringing. At one point, me and my sister particularly. And I was going into a lot of detail about that. We went on to do pantos. My dad wrote plays that me and my sister starred in as well.
Wow.
So I sort of, it's hard not to cram in all of that information. And it's such a, it was such an old, I don't know if I got that across in the story. I was really trying to emphasize the fact that it was really old. The toilet was outside. You didn't want to go to the toilet ever. You'd hold on to it so tight because you thought, oh, I've got to go down those steps, slippery, slimy wood stone steps as well. But it was a real hub, and it had a core audience who always came back. And dad just became very known for his comedy performances, which is really nice, when you're a kid and you're looking up and sort of idolizing your dad on stage. It was really great. Yeah, so we were there for years. I think I was 11 when we first stepped in there, maybe 10, 11, and then 18 and then I mentioned he wrote the panto, the very smutty adult panto, which he didn't want me to be a part of because dad was such a prude at home. He couldn't, if you mentioned the word virgin, he would I'll talk all around it. He couldn't explain what that was. It's just classic sort of prudish parent. But then on stage, that's where he put everything. That's where he sort of let go, and he wrote that pantomime, which was hilarious. And very, very shocking for me to know that kind of thing went on in his mind. It was, Hansel and Gretel. So, I mean, I could have gone on and on really about that theatre, and which isn't there. Well, the building's there now, but now it's a fancy evening venue. So it's changed.
You said, your dad had a problem with it's kind of prudish and would never really want to talk about the word virgin. I remember, I think most of my generation learned what a virgin was from the movie Hocus Pocus. You know that movie?
I do, and I have seen that recently with my daughter. Well, I can't remember the virgin reference though.
So only a virgin can light the black candle, which brought the witches back.
Okay.
To life. And all the kids had to turn to their parents and be like, Mom, what's a virgin?
Yeah.
They're like, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
My dad's classic was that came up with some kind of dragon movie, back in the day where they would sacrifice virgins, and in some medieval village. And that's what came up in our family. Oh, what's a virgin? And dad said, oh, I don't know, something to do with the olden days, I think. And that's
wow.
That's how the sex education went in our house. There was just none of it.
So tell me more. Oh, I was going to say, tell me more about your dad. What about your dad? I mean, I know you said a little bit, but what's not in the article, right? Tell us more. I know he unfortunately passed away at a rather early age.
Yeah, I know what you mean with that. I think so dad was 53 when he died, and so when you mentioned sort of your previous question about what to leave in and what to take out, it was hard to know what to put in about his personality, because he was a very quiet man, and then he had this funny bone, and he had this love of theatre, and so he would let himself go on stage, and with a select bunch of people, but he inside was a very stressed man, and I think that's what led to his heart attack. He would worry a lot about things, but he never expressed those worries. And I think a lot of that comes from his childhood. So I mentioned he just had no he just had no education in any sense. He had no sort of formal education, but then there was no sort of emotional nurturing either. He knew his family loved him, so there was no sort of abuse or anything like that, but it was just that total lack of guidance, and he had to figure everything out himself. So he was quite remarkable in the fact that he had no education, but he was one of the most knowledgeable people. So he made a point he made a point of learning everything he could about everything. He was a very interested, curious person. So if you would bring up Shakespeare, he could hold a conversation about Shakespeare or classical music, or so he was quite remarkable in that. But he was very stressed, sort of quietly stressed person. And he used to joke that he was Fagin. You know, the Oliver Twist, the movie. Oh, I'm trying to think of the musical. Do you know that one? And
Yeah.
The classic depiction of Fagin, he used to joke that he was like that, which was so spot on. he was from his childhood, like he was proper penny pinching, and he was always being, what do you want that for? No, you don't need that. And he would sort of, he was always sitting with his receipts, counting them. So he was quite a character. So he was a big mix of things. And he was just great fun to chat to. We always used to put the world to rights, and particularly when we got older and we could join him in the pub. He loved that. So then we'd spend many a nights over a beer just discussing various topics until we got kicked out, basically. So yeah, he was a character.
How did he get involved in theater? How did he start that?
I actually don't know. I don't know at all. He must have. What I'm thinking is he must have gone out looking for it, because he did always used to tell that story that I wrote in the article about how he tried and somebody just disliked him, and then he took that to heart that particular day, and he didn't go back, and it must have just been on his mind. So I actually don't know at all, but I'm guessing that's what happened. And then that was just I think every weekend, every evening, it was just all theatre all of the time. And like I said, he used to bore me silly, being like, "Oh, Heidi, here's a script. Test me again." And I go, "No, please." But it was quite fun. But at the same time, thinking, "Oh gosh, it's the 100th time I'm going through your lines." But he was just obsessed with it. Yeah, he's just absolutely obsessed with it. He loved it.
And I know in your story, you guys were surprised to see him on stage. Was that were you surprised because, I mean, you didn't know he was going to be there? You didn't know he enjoyed being on stage? Like, which surprised? Both?
Both, yeah, definitely both. I can really remember Mum saying, "We're going to the theatre," and that was such a treat. And then in the next breath, she said, "Dad's not going to be there," and we just went, "What?" And I can remember really feeling, "Oh, this sucks. Why isn't Dad going to be there?" So to have that initial disappointment, but then he was there because he was on stage. So there was that shock, which was lovely. And just the strangeness of it, because I think it was a production of Cinderella. It was a pantomime. So he, like I said, he came out with the makeup, how you have the really orange face, so you're not washed out, and the big cheeks and the frilly clothes and everything. And it was just so it was so strange. It was just so not what we'd ever seen him do, because he was a painter and decorator. He was always covered in muck and paint and wearing big boots and dirty clothes. And there he was.
Is that where you thought he was? Do you remember, did you just think he was working on a job, or where did you think he was?
It didn't make sense. So Mum said he was working, which didn't make sense at all. But I just remember thinking, "Oh, that's not right." But then I didn't give it much thought. I just sort of knew, no. So the explanation she gave didn't make any sense. But I had no idea. I had no idea where he was. But they were a fan of doing that, actually, Mum and Dad. They like to, I think that was probably my mum's idea, to surprise us like that, because they surprised us with a holiday one time. They said we were driving down to the seaside, and then we ended up in Heathrow Airport. So they like things like that. They like to sort of keep us in the dark, and the big reveal. they did that quite a lot.
You're a good talker. You're like, this is why I was really nervous that, I'll cut this part out, but I was really nervous that, I interview a lot of people for, like, jobs and whatever. And you get those people on interviews where they, like, don't speak. Like, they don't say anything. Like, they only answer the question. They don't know how to keep going. You're just like, twiddling your thumbs.
Oh, that's nice you say that then, because I had no idea what to expect either. No idea.
Yeah. At the end of your article, you've got, it says, me and my brother and sister are raising money for the British Heart Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
How long have y'all, is that new? Have you been doing that for a while? Or tell me about that.
That's very new. So in October last year, my brother messaged me and said, would you like to do a marathon in April? So it's coming up, it's 2 months away now. And I just immediately wrote back and said, no, thanks. And he went, oh, go on. And so my brother and sister are younger than me, only by about 4 or 5 years. And so my sister's doing it too. And what's happened is my brother and sister are close. We all live in the same place now again. And my brother and sister are very close, and they spend a lot of time together. And I always feel left out, because they've got the same social group. They're very extrovert people, whereas I'm very introvert. So they love going out socializing. And whenever I join them, I just feel like, no, I'm not comfortable here. I need to go. So I don't get to spend much time sort of socially with them, or doing anything actually. So it was a good motivating factor for me to say yes. I'm not really a runner. 5K's always been my sort of limit. I've done 10K a couple of times, and I'm training for this marathon now. We're supporting each other on WhatsApp, so it's quite fun. Watching each other's updates. We send screenshots of our running apps and stuff, but to be honest, I'm hating it. I'm struggling. I did a run yesterday and I was cursing and swearing because I kept having to stop because the lactic acid was building up in my legs. And I ran the furthest I've ever run yesterday, which was 15K. But it felt like I'd been running for 5 days. So it's the feeling of that, and I'm not even, what is that? So that's about a third of the distance, isn't it? So, but today is the first day where the marathon feels achievable. So the whole point of doing the marathon is, we've got my dad, we're raising money for the British Heart Foundation because he passed away from a heart attack, and I want to bond with my sister and brother. I want to have a nice, meaningful memory that doesn't involve everybody getting really drunk. So, because that's all it's been so far.
Oh boy.
So yeah. So that's that story in a nutshell. So in 2 months' time, hopefully, a little over 2 months' time, hopefully I can say I've got a marathon under my belt. But it's looking.
Well, good luck on the marathon. That's something I have never done, and there's no way anyone will ever make me do that. I would die. I think I'd die. I think I just converted that into miles as you were speaking, and I was like, oh my God, I don't think I've walked that far in my whole life combined. Like,
I know. And I really thought as I've been training, I'm going to become one of these people who's going to tell people to do marathons. And I thought it's the opposite. I'm going to tell everybody don't do it. It's just, I think you're either a runner or you're not. and I've always wanted to be a runner. I don't know why. Nobody, apart from my sister, she's a good runner, but really, I don't know why. I've always thought I should be good at running, and now I realize I'm giving myself permission to dislike it and to say it's not me. But who knows? In 2 months' time, maybe I'll be transformed, but I can't see it. I don't know. I'll start cycling or something.
Well, if we do another writing contest here in a couple of months, then I hope you read that article about I'm sure what will be I love running. Running is so fun. Let me tell you about running article.
Here's what I've learned. There again, just say one thing that was interesting yesterday was I've never gone beyond my comfort zone with exercise. And yesterday I did that for the first time. And that was quite a moment where you think, there's just like a life lesson, isn't it? If you really, really want to progress, you have to go. Yeah, I was thinking about that. You have to feel the pain at some point. So yeah, that's where I was yesterday, feeling the pain, but hopefully growing.
Well, good luck with the marathon. Something I'll never do. But I want to say thank you again for writing this amazing story and opening up and sharing something that was very personal. I was a little nervous about asking questions on such a personal, heartfelt story about your dad. So yeah, thank you very much. We all loved this story. The editing team and I just like as soon as we read it, we just knew this was the the one that was going to win.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you stopping by and hanging out for a little while today. And
thank you. Can I say a big thank you to you and your publication and all your editors, and for the competition as well, because I really enjoyed writing it. And yeah, I've enjoyed this interview, and it's just lovely to meet people in real life as well. All these writers that are sort of behind the articles. It's really lovely to meet you. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And yes, it is. It's really, really nice to finally, put faces and hear, people are not icons, right? People are human beings and getting to interact with them in a different, more personal way is really eye-opening. And you kind of discover that what we're doing on Medium and online really has an effect on a real person. And once you kind of put that 2 and 2 together, that gives you the motivation, or at least it gives me the motivation to keep going, right? Because I know a lot of times you write and you think, man, like this just isn't, like, who's reading this stuff? Like, I'm writing and working all this time, like, what for what? Like, what is happening? And so, yeah, it's really good. And that's why we have the Discord community to, really kind of hang out with each other and get to know each other. So I'll put the link to the Discord server in the description, and anyone can join and come hang out with us and like amazing writers like Heidi. Well, thank you very much, Heidi. I really appreciate it.
Well, lovely to see you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.